Meantime, home sales in Canada begin 2023 at a 14-year low. The Canadian Real Estate Association says national home sales declined 3% month over month in January. Home sales were down 37.1% compared to that of January of 2022, and home prices fell 1.9% month over month and 12.6% year over year. For more, let's go to Peter Baroyani, a sales representative with the Inner Circle Real Estate Group and RE/MAX Hallmark. Peter, a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Hi, Lois. Thanks for having me on.
So it's a pleasure. Peter, give us your reaction to these numbers. Are they in line with what you've been seeing in the market?
Well, they definitely are, and what we have seen over the past few months. I think the important thing for us to keep in mind is we don't want to look at these numbers in a vacuum, but we want to make sure that we're applying context to the numbers that we're seeing here. We're comparing our January of 2023 to a historic month in January of 2022. And so with that, understandably, we have seen some decreases, especially with the Bank of Canada being as aggressive as they have with their interest rate hikes.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about those interest rate hikes in a moment. But before we get to that, what do you think has led to the decline in home sales last month?
Well, if you take a look at what affordability looks like for buyers who are entering the marketplace, it is actually very closely aligned to the increases in interest rates that we've seen. So what that tells us is that the decreases in prices that we are seeing over the past year are very closely tied to the increases in interest rates. In other words, what buyers are spending monthly on housing hasn't actually changed much. It's just been affected by the amounts that they can qualify for through these rate increases.
So then what is your take here? What are you seeing? Do you think that there's more room to go down here to decrease in home sales and home prices, or have the Bank of Canada's interest rate hikes worked their way through the market?
Well, that's a great question. Of course, the interest rate hikes do have an immediate effect or very close to an immediate effect on the marketplace. It will be interesting to see how things play out over the next few months and years. I think the one thing for us to keep in mind is the Bank of Canada has expressed that we are nearing the end of the interest rate increases. And so I think now 2023 is largely going to be more or less a staring contest between buyers and sellers. We have already seen buyers starting to pick things up in the marketplace and activity starting to pick up. And it's just whether or not sellers are going to come to the table, A, with listing their homes, and B, with what their expectations are, and whether or not they're accepting offers that they're happy with. So I think largely that's going to determine where prices go from here. But as of right now, I think more or less for buyers, it is a great time to be shopping, as we have seen some really great savings over the past 12 months.
And where do you expect those opportunities to start? Or where do you think people should be looking right now?
Well, speaking for the Greater Toronto Area and specifically out here in Durham, I think it's a really good time for first-time home buyers to be active and looking. The one really difficult thing for a lot of first-time home buyers that they were running into was just the cost of their homes for entry-level homes was getting to a place where it was just unrealistic to be able to purchase. Yep. And in the time since, we've seen prices fall back down to earth a little bit, and that's giving them opportunities to start searching again. And I think buyer mindset is really important right now, and just understanding that when you're going to buy your first home, this isn't your forever home, but you're really starting to plant your roots in the housing market and start your journey up the property ladder. So being mindful of that, being mindful of just making sure that you're buying in a good community, somewhere that you'll be happy, and keeping in mind that real estate is always a long-term purchase.
And for anyone that you've been dealing with, or anyone out there who has been looking to sell and has held off until now, is now the time to list, or what kind of advice are you providing to your clients?
Well, the good news for sellers is that we definitely are seeing an increase in buyer activity, which of course is going to produce better results. Now, the one thing for sellers to keep in mind is when we're looking at average home prices, it can seem scary when we are comparing them to last year and seeing how far prices have fallen. But when you're in the real estate market, things tend to remain relatively stable. And what I mean by that is, yes, you are selling your house at a loss potentially, but you're also going to be buying a home that's cheaper in today's market than it would have been last year. So I think for any sellers, just having a conversation with their real estate representative or broker, understanding what's currently happening in the market and preparing for the sale of their home is important, but not to be fearful of what's happening, because more or less things are working out to be a wash for a lot of sellers out there.
Okay, all right. Peter Barayiani, sales representative with the Inner Circle Real Estate Group and REMAX